My name is Jeannette Marie Lalonde. I was born on April 3rd, 1937, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, about 8 miles south of Torquay, Saskatchewan. I had 4 brothers and 3 sisters, the best brothers and sisters anybody could have. My father's name was Adolf Lalonde, and my mother's name was Cecile Marcotte. My father came from Perkinsville, Ontario, and my mother was raised in Saskatchewan all her life. She was a great mother. How would I explain my dad?
Well, if you know Kenny, that's kind of who he was.
We still talk about the things that he said and did, and because he was sometimes really weird, but he was funny. He was quite funny.
If you didn't know your name, he called you Johnny.
Or Gallagher. Well, he had a French accent, and he never did learn to read or write, so he had no way of knowing that his words didn't always come out right. And he'd say things like, he's okay, him. He's on the farewell, you know, things like that, you know. Oh, we still laugh at a lot of things. Brian can tell you.
Pitch the blush. Pitch the fists.
I can't say dirty words. Even if it is French, I can't say them.
You grew up on a farm?
Yes, we were on a farm.
What were your chores like?
You know, we didn't do a heck of a lot on the farm, except my mother made us do housework, but really I didn't do very much outside. That only happened later in life.
You put her to work?
Well, taught her how.
Yeah.
Started school at Lucky School for the first, till I was 11 years old, when we moved closer to the highway, as Mother would have put it, and went to Defiance School for quite a while. Had really good teachers, I thought. They were nice to us.
Well, I'm Robert Rylan John, or whatever you want to call me. I've been called worse. Anyway, I guess I was born in Estevan. I can only remember living in a little shack east of Outram, Saskatchewan. And then in fall of 1937, we moved to Mydale. I was 5 years old, and we had to catch the chickens, and that was one of my jobs, to catch the chicken in the chicken house. We put them all in this truck with all the furniture, the little bit of furniture we had. And I rode in the back of the truck, and we moved to Mydale. E.B. Anderson farm that we rented. Our dad rented it. And we lived there. The farm is still there. Just ask Randy. I can remember the ride in the truck. I was beside a big black clock, so I knew what time it was. Yeah, and then, we started there. It was a shack.
Directly in
It
front.
was plaster and laths. And when we painted, we didn't paint, we calcimined. Put calcimine on the walls. Kept it clean. We had chickens and turkeys and cattle. We had no farming at all other than that. It was the dirty 30s, and it was lousy. It really was. The winds would blow, and there was so many grasshoppers, they'd eat the fence posts. You never saw anything like it. And the wind would come, and the turkeys would chase the grasshoppers, and we had to go and get them back because they'd follow them till they got lost. We'd never seen them again. They just kept going with the wind. Yeah, it was really bad there. Well, 1943 was when my dad died.
Yeah,
My dad was 50. Oh, I was
You were 11.
10, 11. Anyway, yeah, I'm very old. He died in January.
31st.
And when spring came, we got a notice from Weyburn Security that they were going to sell the land. E.B. Anderson owned it at the time. And they were going to sell the land. We had first chance for it if we wanted to buy it. Otherwise, we'd have to get off. So I don't know the whole process, but I know my mother decided to buy the farm. And that's where it kind of started for me.
Well, there was 8 of us. I had 2 brothers older than me, Lawrence and Elson, and they moved to Sudbury when they were only 15 and 17 and worked in the mines there, nickel mines. And they're both gone now, so I'm next in line. And then there's Dolores. She lives in Warman. She's married to Don Turk. Then is Ronnie, and he lives in Kelowna. And he lost his wife Marlene a while back here. And then it comes Irene, and she lives in Estevan by herself. And Georgette is in Radway, Alberta, and she's married. She has 3 children, and I don't know how many grandchildren, about 4 or 5. No, she's got 6 of them, I guess. And then there's Gary, and he's married to Adeline, and they live in Saskatoon, and he's retired. He keeps our family together because he has us all call each other all the time. Really a good guy. My mother and dad, my dad was born in 1907, I think it was, Adolf Lalonde, and he lived in Perkinsville, Ontario, which is around the Georgian Bay. And he came here to Saskatchewan just to explore the West. And he was a lumberjack for one winter. And he had a great sense of humor. He thought he had a great sense of humor. And we all laughed all the time, but he kept us laughing. And he was kind of rough around the edges a bit, and kind of crude sometimes with words and things. But I got my sex education from him.
That bet monster again. Pretty hard to keep it, but she's shooting the faster. Bet monster.
And my mother was a dainty, shy person. Cecile Marcotte, she was.
Hi! You just saw me for the first time?
Oh, no. You don't like that. No,
She came from a family of 11, and she took care of her siblings because her mother died at 46, and she was the oldest one left at home to look after. Well, there was 2 married, and she was the 3rd, and 8 more she looked after till she got married. And then when she got married, she had 10 of us, really, and lost 2. And they're buried in Torquay at this little cemetery there under Joseph and Mary Lalonde, but that wasn't their names. Their names were Gerard and Annette. So if you ever see that, you'll know that isn't true. They're on a plaque there. I saw it one summer.
Where did your dad work?
My dad?
Yeah.
Well, he came from, like I said before, he came from Perkinsville, Ontario, that's around the Georgian Bay. And he worked on his dad's farm till he was 21, and then he left. But I know that he spent 1 year as a lumberjack up north somewhere. And then he came to Saskatchewan to work for my mother's dad, Joe Marcotte, who had a thrashing machine outfit. And he came to do that thrashing for the year, I suppose. I don't know just how long he was there. And that's how he met Mother. And I think they must have got married shortly after that because he was only a year older than her. So, and I know she was 23, so he'd been 24 when he got married. He said he never was going to die in Saskatchewan, but he did. He thought he'd always go back to Ontario, but he never did. And my mother, she didn't go far because she was raised 4 miles south of Torquay, about a half a mile from that corner that we were on at the farm there that we lived on. And that's how far she got. She didn't get very far, but she worked hard.
We'll talk about, how hard it was for women to raise kids back in those days. They had no microwave, no diapers.
It was a coal stove in the kitchen, and you had to light that up every morning and just for breakfast.
Your mom and dad?
Your parents?
Oh my gosh. Allison Michael Johnner.
But she was
She was a cook.
What was your dad like?
Quiet.
with you guys, he was quiet, but they said he talked endlessly with others. My father met him one time. He was looking for something, and he came to where Dad was living at the time. And my dad, the way he described him, he says, he talked so quickly and so much, he was foaming at the mouth. He said it in French, but it sounds better in French than it does in English. But
I can't see that, but
well, that's what he said he did. He talked a lot.
they had 10 kids. Anne was the oldest, and there was Martin, and there was Rosie, and there was Tilly, and Kay, and then Frank, and Bill, myself, Louise, and Donnie. Got them all.
But wasn't it like Anne?
Martin.
Isn't it Kate?
No?
Oh, she
No,
wasn't.
it was Rose Tilly.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought she'd been the oldest. She seemed more like in charge.
Oh, no.
No.
No, she was home. That's
Oh,
what-
I see. I see.
Yeah, she was home, and you know, like she was, I think she was 26 when she got married, wasn't she?
I don't know. I didn't know you guys then.
Yeah. She was 3 years older than Frank, and she got married in 1946.
Frank, was he going to be, he was going to be 91 in December, he died in October.
I know the oldest girls weren't there at the farm anymore, they were out working. Anne and Rose and Tilly were all working out, and Kay was home. Kay and Frank. Martin was there. Martin had a bad case of diabetes, so he had a lot of problems with that. And it's sad to say I'm the only one that's alive out of the 10. It's kind of lonely.
Not really. We had lots of grandchildren.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we made sure of that. I think I'm the only one left because he doesn't like me.
Who?
Doesn't want me. God doesn't like me, he doesn't want me. He's supposed to stay down here and suffer.
That's because you swear too much.
Uh-oh. I wouldn't call what
63 years I've been saying, don't swear. What does he do?
She thinks started to swearing.
I
You be the judge.
never swore in my life. I don't think.
Oh my.
Well, just a little bit at you, but otherwise.
Remember one time, it was in the fall, and there was a straw pile to the north and another one to the south. And Berquist had let their cattle run loose, and there was a big mean old bull in that herd. And every day we'd walk by, they'd be at one straw pile or the other. And this one day, well, every day the bull would start out walking, and I'd watch him. And as we walked further east, he'd get on the road, and he'd look at us, and then he'd walk across the road to the other straw pile. And this one day, he started too early, and I thought, uh-oh. So I said to Louise, let's run. Let's hurry up and get home. I didn't tell her about the bull. So we started to run, and I kept looking back, and sure enough, when the bull got on the road, he turned to go after us. So then I told Louise, now the bull's coming, we gotta go. And we ran as hard as we could go. And I went in the pasture like a dummy, thinking the bull might stop and turn around. But he didn't. And we ran, and Louise got tired, and she said, well, I can't go anymore. Well, I said, I'm not gonna stop, I'm gonna keep going. And I'm sure if she had stopped, I would have had to. But man, we ran and ran, and the bull was right behind us, and we just jumped right through the door at Carlson's, that house along the road. And man, oh man, he was right on our tail. And Gordy chased him with his old white mare, Jippy. And then he rode with us the rest of the way home. Anyway, Another time we were coming from school, my brother Martin Elbin Carlson had bought an old combine, and they were working in the corner of Section 5, and they were stopped and having trouble, so we walked over there. And they had the machine running, and Elbin was in front, and he was working on the header. And they had, apparently the bolt had broke in the header, and they put a spike in and just twisted the spike over so it was sticking out a little bit. And Elbin got too close, and he had a brand new pair of bib overalls on, and this spike caught his overalls in the bib here, and it broke the straps over his shoulders, and it would just lift him. And I thought, oh, he's gonna go in, you know, he's gonna go in, sure as oil. And Vinyl ran up and shut it off, but he didn't slow the motor down. He just threw the clutch out. And that combine just rolled and rolled and rolled. And that reel was going, and it was just pulling his pants, and he'd be lifting, and I thought, oh, he's gonna go in. And the seam would break, and he'd go back down. And it literally took the pants right off him. He walked away from his clothes, and they were all wrapped in the reel. That was really scary. Wow. Man.
My earliest memories are when we went to Uncle Leon's wedding, and I don't remember any part of it. Mother told me lots of times about it, but the only thing I can remember is that evening we were at Mr. and Mrs. Cassette, not like Charlie Cassette's father and mother, and we did Ring Around the Rosie with them, and then I did that with them and Yvonne and Cyril and all them, and that was so much fun. And that's all I remember, and I was 2 years and 8 months old, because that was Boxing Day of that year. That's the earliest, and I don't remember anything till we went down east when I was nearly 6 years old. Then I can remember going down there. Electric lights were so bright and stuff like that. I can remember as clear as a bell.
I can remember going with my dad, and we had the pigs. There was a kind of a slough, really deep slough, and it was right by the railroad track. And pigs would go down there, and they'd wallow around in that slough, and it's the only place that was any water. And we'd go down and get the pigs back home, you know. And we come down there one time, and here, the pig was dead. And it was Raymond Lazur, was his name, a bachelor that just lived a little ways down the road. It was on his land. So we know that he shot the pig, you know. But yeah, those were tough times.
Tell the story of the time the little piglet was just about frozen when you brought him in and put him in the oven.
Oh, we used to do that quite often.
What did you used to do?
And even
Well,
a calf. Put the calf behind the stove.
When they would have the little pigs, and it was so cold out there, so we'd bring them in and open the oven door and lay them on the oven, in front of the oven door to keep them warm until they were dry at least, and then we'd take them back out. Oh yeah.
When I started school, I couldn't speak English, only French, so the first thing that went on the board was a great big and they said, and of course I'm so smart, you know, I said, Zato, and everybody laughed, and I was so embarrassed, you know, because I thought I was being smart, and here I was being laughed at, because I said it in French. But the teacher was French too, so she understood.
And then who did you practice French with later on?
Oh yeah, Dolores called me and she wanted to tell me something in secret when we had arranged that she would say it in French and then I would understand.
Because you were on a party line.
We were on a party line, we didn't want anybody to know what that was. And so she said she would say French, and we could, at the time, talk French a little bit, you know, enough to get by. Now I'm afraid I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it no more. Because he's German, you know.
I never did speak German.
No?
I never spoke it.
No?
No, I always talked English. But my folks spoke German. I remember my dad, we used to get relief hay. We didn't have no hay, it was dried out everywhere. And they'd ship hay in from Manitoba. So this one day, he took the rack and he went over to Blewett, which was about 5 miles, and to pick up this relief hay. He got there and there was so many farmers there that they each got 2 bales. So he brought the 2 bales home, and when he got home, he realized he had left his shovel over it in Blewett. So he said in German, "Was man nicht im kaputt Reisbrunns Fies," and he walked all the way back there and got a shovel.
And tell you what that means.
Well, it means that what you don't have in your head, you get in your feet. That's why he walked back. And I can remember we used to get serious storms. It would storm for 3 days, 4 days, and then turn around and come from the other direction another 3. And I remember one time we had a storm for 3 days, and Dad used to smoke. And Peter B. Peterson was going to town. So he phoned over and told Dad, "If you need anything, I'm going to town." Well, Dad said, "Get me some tobacco." So that night, when Peterson came home, he phoned Dad and said, "I got your tobacco." So Dad walked over to get his tobacco, and the storm turned around and came from the east, and it was just vicious. You couldn't see nothing. And Dad wasn't home, and it took a long time, and we were just sick. We thought, he's not going to make it home. And all of a sudden, he walked in the door. He was lucky he ran into the fence, and then he knew how the fence went, and that's what got him home. But, you know, we don't have storms like that anymore. They were so vicious, you wouldn't believe. There were times you could tie a rope from the house to the barn so you wouldn't get lost, you wouldn't do chores. I remember one time in the summer, all of a sudden this rainstorm came up, and it was pouring rain. We couldn't see the barn, and that other house that we lived in wasn't very far from the barn, and we couldn't see the barn. And when the rain quit, we went out to see what all went on. We got halfway to the barn, and it was dry dust. It hadn't rained at the barn. And we couldn't see the barn. Pretty crazy.
Wow.
When they say
I've never
things,
heard that one. That's
well, when they say things now, well, this happened or this happened, hasn't happened for 100 years, but it did happen 100 years ago, you know? I can't remember what it was like to walk to school in the wintertime when we were so little. Because we had to do that.
And not dressed properly like you would
Well,
today
you
with
didn't have skidoo
suits and
suits,
stuff like
you
that.
know? I can
And
remember-
warm boots too.
I can remember one time, we didn't have overshoes or anything, and then we got a relief check. So then they could buy clothes. So they ordered out of the T. Eaton's catalog.
Or
And,
Sears too.
And when this big box parcel would come with all the clothes, man, I had 4 buckle overshoes. I couldn't believe my eyes. What a treat. 4 buckle overshoes. A treat. Man, that was crazy.
That's what happened to my mother and dad too. They got a relief check and they paid it back because you were supposed to pay it back. And Uncle Arson, he didn't pay it back because I suppose he didn't have any money at the time or whatever. And he didn't have to pay it. And the rest had all paid for it, you know.
Well, yeah, we paid for it.
Yeah, we did too.
Yeah, they gave everybody, well, I think it was $500.
Was that in the 30s?
No, it was, must have been 39 or 40.
Yeah, right after the dirty 30s.
Remember one time I got a Mackinac with a fur collar. Wow, was that something. We didn't have hoods in those days. I don't know.
But you had those.
You wore hats, right?
They
Hey,
were like
wear hats.
these
Well,
Russian caps,
Have
you
a
know.
cap with ear flaps on, you tied it
Yeah.
underneath the ear.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you had like that fur collar, that was the great thing for me. I thought, wow. But I can remember coming home from school and being frozen and laying beside the heater to warm up. And the Lone Ranger was on the radio.
Well,
I'd listen to the Lone Ranger. And the rifleman, oh yeah. We had a radio in the winter, but we never had one in the summer because the battery was dead. We'd only buy one battery a year.
We had the same problem.
It would have been probably 1941 that Rose bought us a guitar for Christmas. Bill learned to play it, and then I learned from him. That was the start of our music career. I learned to play guitar, and then I played with Ralph Zimmerman. We played for country dances and the school dances. Yeah, it was lots of good times. I was about 10 years old, and Dad was cutting the crop with a binder with horses, and he was north, about 2/3 of the way up the quarter, and I had to take him out a drink of water, and I didn't have no shoes on, so I'm walking out there in the fall, and we had Russian thistles like crazy in those
And
days.
cactuses.
And I remember
There was cactus.
It was so prickly I could hardly walk, but I finally got there, you know. And I gave him his water, and he said, well, on the way back, he said, you walk in the bull wheel track. Like they had the big wheel that drove everything on the binder. He said, you walk in that track, he said, and it'll be good. Well, it just worked like a charm. Walked in that track and never had a sliver. It was amazing. But, you know, had no shoes to go to the field.
I know. I went up the cows lots of times and I had no shoes and there was cactuses.
Oh,
Cactuses always grew kind of on a little mold, head of hill. They always grew there, so you kind of knew you'd be cactuses there, you can't go work there. And no shoes on. Oh, so dumb.
well, they used to go to Esteban with a team and wagon and get coal for the winter, you know. Used to get coal. Pile it out in the granary way back south of the barn, you know, southwest of the barn. And the granary didn't have a door on it, and the snow would blow in there. I'd walk home from school and have to dig the coal out of the snow in pails. I'd take 4 pails to the house, and then some chunks. I had to take some chunks there for the heater. Dig them out of the snow. There was something really wrong with that setup.
Why didn't they have that building closer to the house? That would have been too easy. When they knew they had to haul it to the house, why would they put it behind the barn?
And for water, we used to fill the tubs with snow and melt them on the stove. And then they had nice water for washing. And it was
Washing
snow
clothes.
water, you can't beat it. It's as good as it gets. And then they'd hang the clothes out on the line and freeze like a stone. And then they'd go out and get that in after a day or so. They could get it off the line maybe. Freeze their fingers, getting the clothespins off.
So why would they freeze it?
Well, it was,
Well, you
It smelled
how
good,
are you
that's
gonna
about all
dry
I
it,
can
you know?
say.
They'd freeze dry it, really.
And then you'd still have to dry it in the house.
Right.
It would hang through every room there. They'd put the twine from one corner to the other and hang the sheets or whatever. Ducking all day under the sheets. And
Your furnace was coal,
Yeah.
and it was in the center of the house?
Well, not in that old house. There was a coal heater and a cook stove. That's all that was in there to heat it.
But there only was a living room and a kitchen and then an upstairs and there usually was.
There was no living room. It was a kitchen and a bedroom. That's all that was there.
Down
There was no living room. There was a kitchen. We lived in the
Well, when
kitchen.
your dad died, he was in the house for a week.
Yeah,
He
in
was
the
in the
bedroom.
bedroom.
Yeah, in the
Where did your
bedroom.
mother go?
Slept with him.
No,
Yes.
no.
Yep.
Don't count on me doing that. Never.
No, that's right.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Why did she?
Well, it's
there was no
winter
place
time
to
and
go.
we didn't have roads, you know.
it was
and-
January 31st that he died.
I see.
And like they went I don't know, they finally come and got the body, took it to town with a sleigh. I think at the same time they went for the funeral. I swear, I can't really remember.
You didn't go to the funeral?
No, I didn't go. I was the only one home.
I wonder why they left you there.
I don't know. L.C. Snowstorm came over
Old
to stay with
babysit.
me. I don't
What?
think Louise was there, or Dawn.
Well, she had to be.
I don't remember. He had been sick, not well.
Your dad?
Yeah, his mouth was swollen, and he thought he had pyorrhea in the teeth. But this day, he felt better, and he took the team and sleigh over to Floatings. And he came back, and he drove up in front of the barn, and he threw the lines over the side, and he said, "Put the horses away, I don't feel good." And he went in the house and asked Mom for a soda drink. And she turned to give him a soda drink, and he fell, and that was it.
52
And
years
Main
old.
Price came out and said, "Yeah, it was a heart
52.
attack."
But you know, it could have been a
Was
blood,
it?
could have been a blood clot too,
Yeah.
because they have that protein C deficiency here.
I mean, it's easy for somebody
You know,
He's dead now.
they didn't do any
Heart
tests
attack.
or anything, or any
Didn't enough
x-rays or anything, so they weren't 100% sure. And I think your mother had it too. She died of phlebitis too.
We farmed as best we could. We couldn't make the old binder tie, so we bought a new one, a 7-foot binder. It was made for horses. So we sawed the pole off and made a hitch and hooked it on a John Deere D on steel wheels. And that's how we harvested. I was probably in grade 6.
12 years old.
Yeah, I've been about 12. It was 30 below, and it was storming most of the time. And it had been 3 days, and I hadn't been to school. And so finally I thought, well, I just gotta go to school because I'm gonna be so far behind. So I got up and I milked a cow. So I had some milk for breakfast, and I had some cereal, and I must have made myself a lunch. And I walked backwards halfway to school because I couldn't face the wind. And I get to school and the school's closed. But there's a teacherage there, and this little old lady teacher, I went over there, and she got me in, and oh, she was so concerned.
Mrs.
And she-
Longtree.
No, Miss Book. Miss Book. And she said, "I'll make you some soup." And she made me some kind of soup, and it was
Tomatoes.
all curdled. But I ate it anyway. Then I walked back home. You know, I didn't do, the only real experience I had with a horse was Queen. And I was riding her to school for a while. And one night, after school, Bill and Roy Snowstorm had been doing something at school, and I started out earlier with old Queen. And I didn't have a saddle, I was bareback riding. And they came and they were racing. And they went by me on the dead gallop. Well, old Queen wasn't going to stay behind, so she started a gallop. And I was sitting on top there like a fly. And I couldn't stay there. I was just getting punished, and I got cheesed off and I jumped off. I thought, enough of this, I'd sooner walk. Well, I just about hit a telephone pole when I fell. Sprained my wrist. I was learning how to play guitar at the time, and I couldn't play guitar. So I was cheesed right off with horses. Bill went to school. He went to Anderson School as well. He walked like we did. We walked 3 miles. And then he went to Midale, grade 9 on. I remember one fall, he was on the thrash crew for a few days. I don't think he was there very long, but he did earn enough money to buy a bicycle, brand new bicycle. So then we started school, going back to school, and Louise was riding with him on the bike, and they passed me and I was walking, and they went by, and Louise turned back to look and stuck her foot in the front wheel, and upside down and wrecked the bike. The wheel was all wobbly and the spikes were broken. Oh my goodness, that was a very upsetting day. So now we're all walking to school again. I went to grade 8.5 because in the spring I had to come home and help seed. So I didn't bother going back to school, as you can tell. Well, in the war years, sugar was rationed. You could only buy so much sugar. So we went to Towns one day to get a sack of flour. And so Armstrong, young Ken Armstrong, put it on his shoulder and brought it out, put it in the car. And so we get home and we open up the sack and it's sugar, 100 pounds of sugar. Now that's a prize when you can't buy sugar. So mother said, no, we're not keeping it, we're taking it back. That's not
He was
right.
honest.
Yep. So we took it back and we went into the store and said to Ken, you sent us out a bag of sugar instead of flour. Oh, it's out in the car. So he comes out to the car, gets the sugar, hooks it on the side of the door and tears a hole in it and half of it falls out on the floor. So we got our flour and he got his sugar, half of it. No, did it pay to be honest? I don't know.
Yeah, I did.
I guess. But yeah, what a shame.
did.
What a shame.
What do you remember from the war years?
Well, I remember listening to the radio and thinking, oh my gosh, this is
Oh, I was so
Terrible,
scared of Adolf
Yeah.
Hitler.
It's
Oh
really
my
bad.
gosh. They'd listen to the radio and they'd say all these horrible things that he was doing and I was so scared. And then we had to go to bed. You know, that was the worst part.
I can remember he used to have these Harvard planes, and England would send their men over here to get trained. And they would come out with these Harvard planes and they'd practice fighting. And they'd fly at each other. It was unbelievable. They'd fly at them, then they'd twist and they'd turn, you know. And it was just a common thing to see this. We just saw it every day they were doing it. And I was coming home from school one day, and this guy was going way as high as he could go. And then all of a sudden he'd quiet down, you wouldn't hear nothing, and then you'd hear a roar and he'd come straight down. And he was doing that and having a ball, you know, and he'd swing and straighten out, and away he'd go. All of a sudden this one time he's coming down and he's turning like this. And I thought, oh, he's in trouble. He can't come out of it. Now, when they're turning like that, you're in trouble. And he got so close to the ground, it was ridiculous. And he got out of it. And he was gone back to Weber. he
Yeah, but
didn't
didn't
hang around.
somebody crash?
And then another time, this guy, we were out in the yard, and this plane is coming, and it was, I thought, he's going to land in the pasture, and it's nothing but stones and bush and fence. But he didn't. He just went by, and he got on the other corner over there, where there was a stubble field and a straw pile, and he landed there. And I thought, he did. I think he landed. And all of a sudden you could see, I thought it was the wings, but it was the tail. He nosedived. He hit Peterson had plowed a furrow around the straw pile. He was going to burn the straw pile. So he had plowed around the straw pile, and he hit that furrow with the plane, and it went down on its nose and it bent the propeller and he had a mess. So we went, while all the neighbors were down there, you know, we saw this plane, and it was crazy. So then they brought some English guys out to fix the plane the next day. And they worked on the plane and then they weren't done. So they wanted a place to stay. So they came to our place and we put them up for the night.
In what?
Well, I don't know. They slept on the floor, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, they thought it was so funny because we had that chimney in the middle from the kitchen up into the room upstairs. And we could talk through there and everything. And they were having lots of fun. Next morning we get up and we're milking cows and they come out to the barn. They wanted to milk a cow. So this guy, he's sitting under there and he's milking a cow. And of course, cows, when they have to pee, they have to pee. So she stepped forward and stepped on his foot. And he's looking at the cow, and the cow gets done, steps back off his foot, and he says, "Would you like some paper?" And then guys, but the next day, they got that plane running, and there was a pilot from Weyburn. He was cheesed off because he didn't want to be here. He wanted to go overseas. And they wouldn't take him, they kept him here to train these guys. Well, he took that plane up and he just flew it so close to the ground. He chased our horses from one end of the pasture to the other. His wing was right down like that, and the horses were just flying. And he come down there, and there was the guys that were worked on that plane were standing around there. And when they came, they fell flat on the floor because they said he was that close to the ground. They said he's nuts. He don't care. He's just mad. We used to water the cattle. There was a big sluice out across the road. And I come from school and I saw the cover. We had a cover over the hole. And I saw this cover laying and the hole is there. And I thought, oh, Frank forgot to cover that hole. So I picked the lid up and I went across to put it on the hole, but he had dug a new hole. And I went down into the water, right up to my shoulders, you know. Oh, like it's about 25 below. Well, I got out of there finally, and I put the cover back on, and I'm starting to walk home. By the time I'm getting halfway home, everything's freezing, so I can't bend, you know. So I just made it home, just barely made it home, because I was starting to
Guardian angel, third
get
time.
solid. Oh man, see, there's another one. Yeah.
Oh, that
So
was a
I
good
tell
one.
you, my guardian angel, I have a lot of respect for her.
You don't know how often you come close and getting killed by me.
Oh, there you go. See? That's what I mean. I can't even count that far.
And you wonder why you accidentally punched her in the eye that
Yeah.
night. So you
Right
told
away, in
that
case
story.
I had any ideas.
Friend that was interested in Kay was Fred LaValle from Huntoon, and he played fiddle. So because of him, I got interested in the fiddle. And Kay was going with Hugo, which she ended up marrying. But anyway, he had a fiddle, and he said, "I'll sell it to you." I said, "I don't have any money, but I'll give you. I got 7 ducks. I'll give you the 7 ducks." We made a deal, and I got a violin, and we actually played on the radio out of the hall in Mydale, Bill and I.
Did it sound better than 7 ducks?
How much is 7 ducks worth?
They were the fiddle.
I guess so.
Oh man, I tell you.
If playing that fiddle, I'm thinking, I hope there was lots of static that day.
And Brad has that fiddle today.
Has he?
Yeah, I do.
That's the one. Unbelievable.
I remember when I was about 11 years old, I was at school, and I must have been a bit older than that because Irene was there and she'd had sardines for lunch, and Frankie Weinrock was calling her sardine. So I took him outside and gave him a licking. Now, why did I do that? You're never going to do that again, are you? Blah, blah, blah. If I ever see Frankie do card again, he's probably dead anyway.
That's
Well, I mean,
story.
there's so many things like that. So many things like that that you don't think of them till things. What did I do all my life, you know?
Okay, I didn't tell you about the one in the combine. When Frank and I were combining, we hired Stan Connolly to run the tractor, Pull-Tech combine, that 20-foot combine that's still out in the pasture. And when the chain would come off, it would plug up in the front. And I was hauling grain. So I'd come, and they were stopped, and they were in the back putting the chain on. And I knew the combine would be plugged. So I ran around and I crawled inside the feeder house and I cleaned it all out. And all of a sudden I heard the motor race out there. And I thought, well, that's Stanley trying to scare me, you know, because I thought they saw me come. And all of a sudden the cylinder starts to turn. And I thought, they don't know I'm in here. And I could have stopped the cylinder because it was barely moving if I had stuck my foot in. And I thought about doing that, and I didn't have the guts. I couldn't stick my foot in there. So I reached the corner of the thing and I pulled my head out, and Frank was right up there just ready to pull the clutch in. And he saw my face, he just turned white.
Then swallowed.
Number 2. Oh man.
What was your best memories of growing up?
I would say my best memories of growing up was playing guitar and playing accordion and making music with my friends. Yeah, I made $5 a night playing guitar with Ralph Zerman. We'd play for lots of school dances. Louis Mons would play the violin. And it was fun. I'd come home with blisters on my fingers, but I enjoyed it.
Grandma, what was your favorite memory growing up?
I think of course we had a church every Sunday, and in those days, people would just say, come over for dinner, right after Mass. I don't know how they did it, but we had maybe 5 kids, and they had 5 kids, and I don't know where they planned all this, but my mother would do the same thing, and then we'd go and play with them and everything, and we went to Uncle Arson's, and that's Father Marcotte's father and mother, and so I played ball with Father Marcotte a lot too, and they were always so generous, you know. They'd say, oh, she made it to 3rd, you know, and they'd let us win, you know, and they were very kind to us that way, because we weren't that great at baseball players, but. And we went to other places like Pat Marcotte's, which was we went there a lot too, and Deconics, and we had fun that way. That was the best that I can remember.
Gordy Carlson said one day, I went there to get something done, and he said, I saw television. I said, what do you mean television? And he said, yeah, screen and picture, he said. I said, you gotta be kidding me. He said, in my shop in Mayadale, he said, I got a TV there. So Saturday night we went there. We thought, we gotta see this, I just don't believe it. So we went to his little shop, and we sat there for 3 friggin' hours, looking at this snowstorm on the screen, and all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, there was 3 guys singing. Well, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was the most amazing thing that I just thought that's impossible. That would have been probably 1954
or so.
I don't know.
Before 50s. We were married. Because by the time we were married,
1950.
It was really modern. We had TV.
See, the thing is, you know, we didn't have antennas or anything. It was just skip. I guess he must have had some kind of an antenna on it, but yeah, it was. But then later on, we put in a dish. Bill Wading came over and put in a dish with one of those great big dishes outside, well, we had a window on the world. It was, and didn't cost nothing, but they soon put a stop to that. They blocked that so we couldn't get it. All of a sudden it wasn't there. Then those guys figured out how to cheat, and we cheated for about a year, could get it, and then finally you couldn't get it anymore. And they come out with smaller dishes. Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
And what do you think about your TV now?
Wow.
It's pretty amazing. There's just no question.
Tell us about your ribbons that you won there in that picture.
Well, the last time that I did it, they used to call them sports days. And if you were good at your school, then you went into Torquay and you competed with every school there. And I won all 6 red ribbons, every one. And another, George Olheiser won for the boys, all 6. It was a big deal. I don't know how old I was, 14 maybe.
Pretty athletic.
Oh my, yes.
If they would have had the Olympics.
Oh, I'd have made it. I'd have made it.
Anyway, as time went on, we managed to stay alive, let's put it that way. And then it started to rain. It was in June, and it started to rain. And it rained and rained and rained, which it did in those days. It seemed like at exam time, it rained for 2 solid weeks, all through exam. So anyway, this is what it was doing, and we were laying upstairs on the bed, and we got to talking, and we decided we were going to build a new house. So we went out, hooked the tractor on what they called a Frisner. It was a scraper with a handle at the back, and Frank run the scraper and I run the tractor. We started digging the basement. We got down 4.5 feet, and I couldn't pull it out of the hole anymore. I was just spinning. And just the next day, Bill Ross came, which was Rose's husband. And he said, well, you don't have to go any deeper than that. Keep it out of the ground. Well, you couldn't have made me happier. So that's where we left it. Yeah, we hired Len Waltz from Hulbright and Marvin Richards and Harold Richards from Huntoon. And they brought their belts and hammers and they started building. And we moved into that house Christmas Eve.
And built that what year?
51, I think. If I remember right, it was 51. Every time we run out of money, we'd take a load of cattle to Moose Jaw. That's how we paid for the house. And the house cost us $10,000. Mother lived in it till 57.
55.
55, sorry. Yeah.
And then when was the other house built?
Yeah, July of 57 it was
Yeah.
built and moved on. It had been built.
Oh, that was moved on there.
Yeah, Edinburgh.
So
Yeah.
The house was built in Lampman. And then we moved, we'd done the basement, and they moved the house over from Lampman.
That was in 1957, July.
Yeah.
And we got married on November 4th.
How often would the power go out?
What power? We never had power.
You mean when you were...
Like on the farm?
Yeah, when we first moved there, we didn't have power. We wired the house that we built. We wired it, but still didn't have no power. But we bought a wind charger, and we had batteries in the house, and the charger charged the batteries, and we had electricity. That was 32 volt. And I remember we had bought this tower with the charger, and Jimmy Arts was coming over. We were going to raise the tower. And a cloud come up in the west, and we thought, we better not be bunkering around lifting this thing up in the air if a windstorm comes or something. So we went in, had coffee and had lunch, and we were just going to go out and start pulling up this tower. The phone rang, and it was Ericsson's. They said, did you know you got hailed out down on 21? And I said, no, we didn't even get any rain here. We went down there and we were hailed out 100%. 400 acres of summer fallow with registered seed.
Oh my goodness.
Lost it all. But we had a wind charger. You know, another one is really funny. When we were building that house, Harold Richards, he teased the Gobbler all the time. And that Gobbler, the minute he'd see Harold Richards come in the yard, he was there dragging his wings and he was ready to fight. Well, it was so funny. I remember one day I could see Harold Richards coming down the road from the north, and the Gobbler was on the driveway with his wings down, waiting for him. He was that
That's
man?
to
Adam?
be smart. Eh?
Oh, he was just, it was unbelievable.
That's smart.
Yeah, I remember they were shingling the roof. And he was chewing tobacco all the time, and he'd spit over the side. So when they moved to the other side, the shingle, he had to shingle that part. Oh boy.
Where did you meet?
We met at Bourgeois. Louis and Irene Bourgeois in Estevan.
That's where we met, yeah.
And a long time ago. We went to the drive-in, I think that night with Louise, and Louise was with us, and Frank. And I don't know, every once in a while Louise and Herman would go out to the farm, so I'd go with them. So I knew his mother. I got to know his mother. I don't know if she liked me or not, but I never even thought of that when I was young, you know, whether it mattered. And she was a lot different than me. I mean, she was a big German lady, and I should have been scared of her, but I wasn't.
How did you propose?
Well, it was kind of a gradual thing, I guess. In 1956, she went to Sudbury and was there for what?
For a year.
A year in Sudbury. We wrote letters back and forth. And I got a gravel truck from Louverova in Macomb. I paid nothing down. And I started hauling gravel with Ramsey and Bird out of south of Hallbright is where we hauled from, the gravel pit. And we built 39 highway from Weyburn to Mydale that first year. And then the second year we went from Mydale to Estevan. And it was in the fall, and I came home from work. And I don't know how come I come home that early that day, but she had come back from Sudbury, and her and Louise had come out to the farm. And when I saw her, when I came in the door, I remembered, I thought, wow, she had a fancy hairdo and she was all dressed. Kind of took the wind out of me. So then, it wasn't too long, she came back from Sudbury. And at Christmas time, I bought her a ring and she put it on. And that's where it all started.
We got married November 4th, 1957. For that late in the year, it was really quite a nice day. It was cloudy a bit, but it was nice and warm. In our wedding party, we had Dolores was my first bridesmaid, and Della Thompson was my second bridesmaid, a cousin. And the best man was Ronnie Lalonde and Donnie Johnner. And we had ushers, and they were Elson, my brother, and his brother Bill. And little flower girls were Gail Dugout's little girl and Uncle George's daughter. And we went on our honeymoon to Calgary. And then
We drove to Calgary.
And then from there we took a train to see, in Calgary, to see Rose and Bill. And then we went to Nelson by train
Which is
to see
my oldest sister, Anne.
Anne and George Kirby. And it was a great holiday. And we come back on the 16th, and it started to snow then, and then winter set in.
But we had we didn't build a house. We, in June, I remember I started digging a basement on the hill for our new house with a tumblebug.
Explain a tumblebug.
Well, it's a little
tumblebug.
scraper. It has two wheels, and you just set it down, as it fills, then all of a sudden it turns over to hold it in, and it goes up, and then you pull the lever, and it dumps. And that worked really good. It was quite an amazing little, took me a lot of trips. It wasn't easy, but it worked. Anyway, I dug the basement with that tumble bug with a tractor, and we poured the cement. Your cousin.
And my uncle Louis Marcotte and Dwayne, my cousin,
Yeah.
came and they,
Yeah.
what did they do?
Well, they poured the basement.
Poured the basement.
Yeah.
But the house wasn't painted inside. You had to paint it all.
Yeah, they moved, we bought a house in Lampton, and they moved it on, and then we had to finish the inside. That took a few years. It didn't happen overnight, that's for sure.
The design of that house was the same as what
As Herman and
Herman and
Louise.
Louise, is that a common house?
Well, he built these houses, I don't know. It was something that was the right size so they could move it, I guess, mainly.
I think it cost
But-
$3,700.
Yeah, $3,700.
It wasn't a big house, but it was new. And we didn't have much furniture. I had bought a stove and a table and chairs, and that was it. Oh, I had a bed too. Yeah, a bed and a dresser. Still got it, the farm.
When you got married in December there, when you were having a dream.
It was 2 days before Christmas,
Yeah, but we had been married.
just since November 4th.
You didn't have any babies yet?
No, he's talking about when you punched me.
No! Oh man, I can't believe this.
This is fun. Especially when we don't agree.
Yeah, well, it was a couple of days before Christmas, and we went to bed, and I was dreaming, and I heard a guy, we were living in the old house that we used to live in at the farm, and I heard this guy coming upstairs, and I thought, he's coming in here, he's looking for something, and I thought, well, he's right above me someplace, so I nailed him, and I swung like that, and I hit her right in the mouth. And I followed it up because I knew what had happened, you know. So now we're 2 days before Christmas, and we're going to her mom and dad's. I thought, oh, that's going to look really good. So
Because my lip was thick.
it was really thick, yeah. But it went down, thank God. And that turned out okay. I wasn't in the doghouse or nothing.
I don't think we even told him.
No.
Pretty good.
So what did you first think when you moved to our farm?
Well, we didn't do it. We didn't do any farming. Like the girls didn't go out and do any farming really. I think I milked a cow once, and I killed 2 chickens once, and that was the extent of my outdoor stuff. Oh yeah, I handed Dad the knife when he butchered a pig, and he'd get the pig down, and we had to run with the knife to give it to him so he could stab it and bleed it. Oh my gosh, scared to death.
I remember when she first started combining, we were on 5, and she came out for a ride. So we made a round, and I said, well, sit down and try it, you know. So she sat down, we made another round, and I said, I got something else to do. You keep going. And I opened the door and I jumped out of the combine and left. And she was screaming.
Well, what do you think?
And she's been combining ever since.
Yeah, till I was
Yeah, it was
79, 5,000 acres a year. When we were first married, you were gone all the time, trucking or something, doing something, and I was alone all the time. Loneliest year of my life.
Then I was born.
Well, it helped,
Then you were
you know.
lonely.
Yeah, I remember that fall. Well, Randy was, when I started graveling for
It was in November that year.
that same year.
Well, when he was born, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. I started graveling in Lampman. We were graveling country
By
roads,
TV.
and I was going to make enough money to buy a television. And I got about a week's work in, and the motor went out. So I brought the truck back to McCoon, put a reconditioned motor in, and when I started back to Lampman, by the time I got to Lampman, the motor was shot again. So I coaxed it back to McCoon, and we put a brand new motor in it. Now I go back to Lampman, and by this time it's getting late and it's getting cold, and they're getting in a hurry. They want to get done, so they're working 24 hours a day. So I worked 24 hours a day. And when you came out, I stayed at Louise and Herman's, and she came out and stayed there a couple of days. And I remember I'd come in and have breakfast there and lay down on the couch for about 20 minutes and go back to work. And I gravelled all week, never went to bed. And we came home and had a bath and jumped in the car and went to Alan and Audrey Barrett's wedding dance in McCoon. And the next day I remember I woke up with Randy sitting on my chest and pounding on me.
Well, he was not pounding very hard. He was only 3 months old.
Wow.
So you're tired.
Oh, yeah, I was tired, no doubt.
He's still tired.
That was the start. Then, I guess,
When Randy was a year old, he started driving school bus.
drove that for 12 years. Was it Eileen Kruger?
Diane.
Diane, yeah, that's who it was. She was the first ones I picked up after I left home. Yeah, I hauled her for 12 years and then I quit the bus. And then work at Louis Veroba's hardware store in the winter. Worked there all winter. I'd haul fuel, delivered fuel, heater fuel and stuff to the country. Oh, it was wild. I say you can't fit a lifetime into a few hours. It's pretty hard.
Did you talk about your diary? You used to have a diary?
Oh, yeah. I had diary for years.
Diarrhea or diary? That's what I heard. I had diarrhea for years. What? We can't talk about that. Rewind.
Oh, man.
Dear.
The nice part is they cut out all the crap.
Yeah.
But we're not going to. That's the fun part.
That's the outtakes.
Oh, my God.
Like I said,
You make 2 copies that way.
I said I like bloopers, but not on me. Oh, I had a diary for years. I started when I can't even remember how long, but I was young. I can't remember. But I had one for years, and it's still in the cupboard there in the utility room. It wasn't very interesting, that diary, because there was nothing happening except went to church, went to confession, that sort of thing. That's about all we did. A confession every 2 weeks. And Father Rubens baptized me. And he was there for my first communion, confirmation, and he married us. All Father Rubens, an old Dutch priest.
Who were your friends? Who did you hang around with?
Brian O'Grady,
Jeannette and
Dennis
Bernie,
Scoots.
Jeannette and Bernie Gravel.
Yeah. Barney Kahinka.
And Ken and Mary Claire Home were involved
Yeah.
at the end there.
Alan and Audrey Barrett.
George and Ardell,
George and Ardell. Kahinka.
Wes and Audrey Veer.
Al Friesen.
Yeah.
Elvira. Well, Bill and Pauline Rickerberg, I don't know if we said that.
Nanny and Dream.
Manny and Reed back. Wes and Audrey Veer.
I said that.
Oh.
We didn't have too many friends.
Okay, our farm consisted of it was grain farm. We had cattle. We had about 70 head of cattle.
You had pigs?
Oh,
chickens,
absolutely.
Turkeys,
turkeys.
ducks.
Your garden was a big deal. It was a big,
Big garden.
We lived off of it. Yeah, the farm actually started with 1/4, the home quarter we bought with my dad's insurance money. And then we bought a quarter from Ed Kruger. We bought the north quarter, north of 9. And then we rented that same half in the middle there until Edward Anderson died. And then we bought it. In the meantime, though, we had bought Section 21 South, and we bought a quarter, 22, and then we bought 3/4, 4, 5/4 from Bill Rookever.
Oh, you're right, that's two.
So, yeah, that's what our farm consisted of for quite a while. And then, when you guys wanted to start farming, we bought Section 5. It was a dry year, grasshoppers, not a good time to buy, but
84.
we bought it. And after that, we bought Paul Young's, Randy and you guys, and bought Bowers.
Section 8
Yeah, Section 8.
over.
So
West,
it
east.
kind of grew.
And what else did you have? Get cattle and
We had about 70 head of cattle. We had chickens and ducks and geese, and we had a big garden, which usually we lived out of pretty well. We had potatoes and corn and radishes and everything you can think of. Carrots, we had it all. And we lived out of that garden, really. We'd go to town and buy some A&W root beer or something, and that's about all. Some grapefruit. We used to get 12 grapefruit for $1. Now they're more than $1 a piece. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
who came up with Lazy J Ranch?
That's when you went into the Simmentals and you needed ear
Yeah.
tags for the Simmental cattle. And I think that's when you started that.
Yeah.
And was that a brand? You had a brand? Did you brand them as a Lazy J?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we had a brand.
But
Oh, yeah.
you did a lot of insemination there.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. I went, took the course, artificial insemination.
Until he
We
thought
had
his,
70 cows.
you can erase this if you want to, but until he thought his arm would rot off.
I used to artificial inseminate these cattle, and Uncle Bill came out, and I put my glove all the way up my arm, and done my thing, and I said I could eat off this hand after I get done here. And when I come out, I pulled the glove off, and one finger had been torn open, so Bill said, "Help yourself." Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And of course, by the time we had a decent line of Simmental cattle, the price went down. So we really didn't make any money.
Well, I worked at the bank in Sudbury for 1 year at the Toronto Dominion, and then I worked in Estevan at the Bank of Montreal for 1 year before we got married.
So then you did the books for the farm for a long time.
Oh, I did the books for the farm for a long time.
Yeah.
And you know, when you guys went on when Brad and the boys, well, Kenny and Brad went on the road, I did your books too. And I did your GST too. And it was new to us at the time, GST. So I had to learn how to do that, which is not a very, but you know, I'm not educated in that field, so it was harder for me. I sent out all their CDs to the radio stations. There would be about 200 radio stations.
And a few to somebody that never ever paid for them.
Yeah, we sent tapes out that, and relatives that asked for them and didn't pay, and stuff like that, you know. So,
Cut that out.
yeah, you can cut that
Because the
out.
relatives will see this.
Yeah.
They'll know, maybe they'll send a check.
You know what?
Plus,
Leave it in.
Plus inflation.
Just leave it in, just cross my fingers.
No, I can't because he's not here anymore.
Oh. Well, you know who you are.
Okay, so talk about, music in your, because Lawrence played and Gary played. And
Yeah, Gary played with a band with you for about a while. I forget how long.
I remember Gary and I playing in I think it was the bar in Torquay. Someplace in Torquay. It was just Gary and I.
Who's your favorite country singer?
Mine?
Merle Haggard.
I used to like Merle Haggard really a lot.
Is that why you bought the Merle Haggard tribute guy that I grew up thinking that was Merle Haggard and it was only a Merle Haggard tribute guy? I feel so cheated. Sparked my love for music and realized it wasn't
The whole
even
thing was
Merle
a
Haggard.
How did the polka dots get started?
Well, I think the polka dots got started when George started to play with us.
And you and Randy and Ray Kulak. And I think were you called the polka dots right then?
Kind of, I guess. But at least we thought we were.
I don't know.
But I remember when I got that band, we still didn't have a name, hadn't settled on a name. And I decided I was going to call the band Driftwood. And I said, well, we don't have to call the band Driftwood, but can if you want. And that's what happened. But that band, that was the cutest thing. And up until very recently, it was still wavering. It was amazing, that thing.
Well, should we start on the kids?
Sure.
Well, Randy was born on August the 18th, 1958. He is still on the farm right to this day. He never really left, although he lives in Estevan. And the only story I can really think of Randy was when we went to visit Tilly and Tilly's, and she was about to make lunch that evening, and the kids were playing in the kitchen, and Frank and Ann were there with the girls too, and they were playing at the table, and Tilly said, well, you make sure that you leave the table so I can make lunch. And Randy said, well, that's a good deal. And I just wanted to say that he's still wheeling and dealing. And Donna, what can we say about Donna? I know one time I asked her to go get a bobby pin, and she said, you mean a daddy pin? And another thing she said was when you were with the horse with your stone boat cleaning barns or something. And she looked out the window and she said, well, look at that one horse open sleigh. And she was really quite young at the time. And then, of course, there's Kenny. Now, what do you say about Kenny? I really don't know. I know one story, but I can't really tell it. But he was busy. He was one of the busier ones. But he was a really good baby, and he slept really, really well. Because one time we had a girl come over to babysit, and I told her, Kenny's sleeping, but I said, you always slept a lot because we didn't have time for him. And I said, there's a bottle in the fridge and you'll have to change his diaper. About 8 o'clock he'll wake up and you'll give him a bottle and change his diaper. And I get home after going square dancing. We were square dancing at the time. And the bottle's full. And I go look at him. And his diaper hasn't been changed. And I said, didn't he wake up at 8 o'clock and you were going to give him this bottle? She said, well, he woke up and he chewed on his hand like everything. But she said, he didn't cry or anything, so she put him back to bed. So he had no food. And he never said a word. And that's still Kenny, he's pretty tough. And who's next? Oh, Brad. Oh, yeah. What did we going to say about Brad. I know that he could hum Canada because Canada, he was born in 1966, and Canada was 100 years that time. Was it 100 years? And that song Canada was out, and I'd sing it to you, and you were 4 months old, and you could hum it. And nobody believed me, but I proved, because you did it for them too. And Tracy, well, her story was about going to Halloweening, and she dressed that year she was about 7 years old, and she dressed like a little Indian maiden, and they went over to Roy Shostron's, and when she was there, he said, well, here's your treats, and he said, for that you'll have to give me a kiss, and she said, I don't kiss white men. So she got away from that one. Tracy's still kind of sneaky like that. And what else? That's the end of our family as far as, and now we have 19 grandchildren, really nice kids, and about to have 10 great grandchildren, 4 boys and 6 girls. Very nice. They're all so cute. I'm done. Yeah, the only one that isn't graduated of the grandchildren is Aiden.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's grade what, 11?
Yeah.
Is he in grade 11?
Yeah.
Holy crow.
Yeah, 2 more years.
Oh my.
If he graduates.
Oh, I think you'll make it. Where are you going?
Oh my gosh, oh,
Where are you going?
She's
kind of scared of you.
Oh, she just wants to share some money.
Can I go sit on Papa?
Oh,
Take a picture
that's
to
a
see.
fun thing.
You got some
Yeah,
candy.
there we
Do you
are.
have a candy for grandma?
Yeah.
Do you have a Smartie for grandma?
That's a nice big
Oh, thank
bite
you.
there. Oh, what you got there?
What a
She's
nice
gonna share.
Wow.
Are you going for a walk? Or are you going for a ride on a scooter? I think.
Yeah. Ride on the scooter?
Oh, you're gonna go on the scooter?
Oh,
fun for the
you're
whole
gonna have
family.
fun.
Yeah, I tell you.
Even I went around White City with Dad.
Yeah,
We had a great
too.
time.
It's fun.
Lucy, can you give Great Papa a kiss on the cheek?
Just a little one? What a sweetie.
Papa Bob.
How about grandma?
One for
Grandma a kiss on the cheek? Give Grandma a kiss.
You can't reach each other.
Oh, there
They're too far away. We were farming with Frank and Ann, and they had 4 girls and we had 5. And like the one time, they scared us a lot of times because Anita and Cindy and Randy were at the back dugout, and you know how deep and how straight down it is. Now you know that it's empty. You bet how dangerous it could have been. It's full of water. And here's Anita and Randy, 2 years old and a year and a half, and Cindy 1 year old. And Cindy's got her feet over the edge like this and sitting on the edge of the dugout. And that's where we found them. Well, we took them home, put them to bed, because we were just scared out of our minds. Those dugouts scared me.
I remember another story when Randy was, how old when he filled his pockets with stones, and
Oh, he was.
we were making
Donna wasn't born yet, so
hay up
you
north.
weren't very old.
And I saw the car down the road a little ways and turn around, go back and go into the yard. And I said to Frank, I gotta go home, there's something wrong. So we had a little Alice Chalmers tractor, and I jumped on that. Well, I unhooked the rake and I went home with this little tractor. And I come home and Mother and Randy were laying in bed, both of them red as could be. And I thought, what the heck? Here she tells me that Randy was going to follow us out to the field. And he went down the road with his pockets full of stones.
He had picked up stones, filled his pockets, and he was red as a beet, and it was July, and it was hot. And he was crying for Dad, like he still does, you know.
But man, oh man, if he'd have went into the wheat field,
Well, that year
we'd have lost him.
you had
Never
seeded
found
the
them.
whole yard into grain. The whole yard was,
Yeah, it was at
High
that time,
with
because
the
we'd see the
grain.
grass underneath.
I only found him because he was down on the road. It would be harder to lose him now.
That'd be a pretty good canola field.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think his canola this year would have covered him. I tried to find something funny
Tell
on
them that I was born 10 months after you were married.
9.5 months. What was those books that you wanted to buy all the
Party
time?
Boy books.
Hardy Boy books. And I was not happy with him spending all his money on Hardy Boy books. So I was, every time he'd go to town, he'd buy a book. Every time. And this one time he was in town and he was coming down the street and he's looking guilty as sin, and I knew he had bought a Hardy book. And you still have them, don't you?
Oh, yeah. But wasn't that a crazy thing? You wouldn't want your kids buying books.
Exactly. Waste your money on
They
books.
worry about their kids buying drugs today, and
You know what?
won't be buying books.
Yeah. I know.
Oh, man.
I've changed my plans and my ideas about kids a lot. Donna was 4 years old, and she was flower girl for Linda and Larry Goldstone. And Neil Cornwall was a little guy, anyway. And
He was.
she did when they went to go walk down the aisle. They were supposed to walk ahead, and the two of them. And of course, Donna was all of a sudden decided she didn't want to do this. And Neil said, "Come on, Donna." And away she went. And that was our experience with Neil at Larry and Linda. And Larry and Linda was Brad's godparents. So they were his godparents too. Linda sent Brad a birthday card for 18 years for sure.
55.
55 years.
Every year, never missed once.
In the earlier years, we used to go square dancing in Mydale. And, well, we went all over. We square danced everywhere. But this one night we were in Mydale square dancing and noticed Bill Rickaber and
Raymond Peterson.
Raymond Peterson and them guys. We were together all the time. And we were kind of out that night. They just kind of like we weren't in the crowd, you know. And I thought, there's something fishy. This is not right. So we drove out of town on the way home, and I had a sneaking suspicion that they were planning something. So we got down the road a ways, and I backed off onto a dead end and watched to see. And sure enough, Bill Rickaber's car and Peterson's car and the caller, they were all going out to Bill Rickaber's. So we went home, and the trick they used to pull, they were going to somebody's place and sneak in their house and catch him in bed. And I thought,
But before
that's what they were going to do. And so
all of a sudden the phone rings.
anyway, we saw them go, you know. So we went home, and we stayed in our dance clothes.
But the phone rang.
And the phone rings, and it's Bill Rickaber. He said,
You said I was talking.
them guys, did they show up out there? I said, no, there's nobody here. Oh, he said, I guess they went home. And I knew right away there was something fishy.
Because we knew they hadn't.
We watched, and sure enough, we could see the light coming down the McCoon Road, turned east or west, came down to our corner, turned up, and the lights went out. I thought, yeah, that's them for sure. So we got into bed, covered up to our neck,
With all our clothes on.
and all the lights out, and our doors weren't even locked. They could have come through the front door, and you know. But Bill Rickaber took the basement window out, and come down over the deep freeze, and came in that house, and went around and opened the door.
For the rest of them.
And we never heard a sound. He was that quiet. And all of a sudden, they're in our room with the lights on, and they're just a-yelling. And they're pulling on the covers. And we hung onto those covers for dear life, you know. Finally, we let go of the covers, and we had fully dressed in our clothes. Well, you should have seen that. And then we went from there with them, and we got into Mydale and went to different places. But crazy. But that's kind of a dirty trick.
What did you do for Christmas? Did you guys just go around to people's places and?
Oh yeah, we did that lots.
I can still see Mullenhauer playing her accordion under our our bedroom window one time.
Yeah, we were in bed. And all of a sudden, our accordion playing.
Out our bedroom window.
I looked out the window and here's Lawrence and what's her name?
Delilah.
Mullenhauer.
And she was playing accordion, and there was a bunch of other mighty old people with them. I can't remember. But.
Oh, we used to have lots of parties. I remember one time, Halloween night, I knew there was something going on. We could hear
Cars and
stuff outside. We just knew there was something. So I walked behind the house and walked down toward the dugout. Here was a car sitting there. So I jumped in it, and the key was in the car. So I started it, and I drove it up the front of the house. And here, there was a guy sitting in the back. And here it was
Harry Miller.
Harry Miller's son. And he had a broken leg, so he couldn't go around with the guys. So he was left in the car. So I said, come on in for a beer. And he did. And pretty soon, the whole bunch were there. Sheepish as could be. But that's the only way they could get their car, because I had the key.
Oh, we went to Lampman, and then, I don't know, while we were there, they said there's a storm coming. And he said, Herman said, oh, there's no storm coming. And he said, let's go down the road and look to see how bad it is. Well, they went down the road and it was fine, you know. So we stayed a little longer, and then we stayed too long. And by the time we went to go home, it really was snowing and the roads were nearly blocked. And it took us about 8 hours to get home from Lampman. And it was the longest night I've ever been through. And
We went,
we
we were halfway across from 47 Highway to home, and I couldn't go anymore. I looked down the speedometer, and it said I was doing 70, and I was doing about 30. And I was pushing snow. And I come by,
roads were
all of a sudden here was a farm and a tractor running. Well, I thought,
of all things.
I'll pull in here and turn around and go back if I get stuck. There's a tractor there. So I pulled in, I turned around in his driveway, and I managed to go back. And we got to 47 Highway, and the highway was good. So we went to Estevan, and we get to Estevan, there's hardly any snow, it's good. So we head out down 39 to Maccoon. We get to Maccoon, and there's more snow. And there's a track going north, so I said, well, somebody made it, we'll go. Well, we get about 3 miles out of Maccoon, the track turned and went east. And as further north we got, the worse it got. And we got to Bill Rickerber's corner, and I couldn't go no more. So I went into Bill Rickerber's, got him out of bed. He had a brand new half-ton. We took that truck, and he broke trail for us so we could go. And we got within the last half a mile home, and I couldn't go no more. So he went with his truck, and he got up there, woke Frank up, got the tractor, and they come pulled our car back into the yard. We got home up there, and the roads were, there was just trails, and there was a foot of snow all everywhere, but there was a trail. And in those days, they didn't clean the roads. You were done, you know.
Tell us about the New Year's Eve dance that you get asked to play for by yourself.
Well, a few days later, because that was the 28th of December, and you played the 31st. So,
Yeah.
well, it was New Year's Eve of '65. Well, and you were born in '66.
George called, said, would you play for this dance, you know, in Maccoon, at the Maccoon Town Hall? So, yeah, sure. So I went in with my little 120 bass accordion and played for that dance.
All by himself. And it was just local people from Macroon there and everything, but...
And I remember a couple of guys come up and played a little bit on the accordion as well. Anyway, we got done with the dance and passed the hat around, and I threw in $5.
It was $6.
Or $6, whatever it was. So I
So-
played for nothing and paid $6 to play for the dance.
So you thought, that's a good deal, I'll go into that business.
Yeah.
Being the center of attraction is fun, you know? No.
You do this every weekend.
Yeah.
There was the time we bought that little trailer and school let out, so we hooked onto the trailer and get up to Kenosha, and everybody's out on there getting into their bathing suits and whatnot and heading for the beach. So I did the same thing in the trailer and I got all done and
That was the whole family.
put my shorts on and
To Brad.
was heading out the camper to get down there, and I shut the door and I realized I'd locked the keys in. Keys were in my pants. Now the door's locked and I can't get back in. So I had a toolbox in the car. I got the tools and I took the back window out of the camper, and it was only the outside. I couldn't take the inside one because it was there. So I put that all back together again. I was so mad I went back and I gave the door a yank and it came open. By that time, it was getting dark, so it was my first day of camping.
And after that, it rained for 3 days.
It did. We met this couple, and we had good week with them. 3 days we had with them. We just had nothing but fun. In the rain, our boots would be full of water in the morning. We had them outside, but we had good friends with them. I remember playing for a dance in, well, it was Jack Pick's dance, wedding. We played in Moose Jaw. And they said, oh, you can't go home. You had too much to drink. You can't drive home tonight. So, okay, we got a room. Oh, we had stopped there earlier to see them, and they were gone. So I left, just told the babysitter who we were, and, you know, we were just stopping to say hello. Next morning, 8 o'clock, phone's ringing like crazy. Gary answered, he was laying there, because Gary was playing with us. He picks up the phone, and then he gives me the phone, and here it's them. I said, how did you know we were here? He said, we drove all over Moose Jaw, I know your car. And he found it.
And
So then we went there. Well, I tell you, I went home in worse shape than I was the night before. And the crazy part was, years later,
we had just moved up here.
yeah, it was
And we
about,
had already booked a casino trip to Winnipeg. And we went to Winnipeg on this bus. And then we had to say what our names were. And
on the way home.
On the way home. And here, right across from us, sitting there, who we didn't recognize was that couple. And I didn't recognize the name either at the time, but they recognized us then. And were they surprised to see us? Of course we were.
Crazy world.
Do you remember when you quit smoking?
Every time she was pregnant.
Yeah, we had a bad habit of smoking, okay. I remember, it was January of 69, because Tracy was born in September, and you quit in February of 69. And haven't smoked since.
It was January 12, 69. Donna read it to me in your diary.
Oh, you're kidding me.
She's right.
I didn't know what day.
I was telling the story of when I think Kenny and I found a pack of smokes out on an old lease road. And we
Oh,
brought them back. Somebody had a full pack of smokes.
I don't remember.
We brought them back and he said, well, let's smoke them. We're like, so we used to lit a cigarette, and we all had a puff on a cigarette and choked, and that was the last of that.
Well, didn't she say if you want to try, and you have to smoke the whole pack?
Yeah, something like that.
And then you went and buried them somewhere?
Yeah, I was like,
you couldn't do it?
I gotta have it.
Burt Gill come to build the cupboards for us. And I remember he marked them all out. And he looked at me and he said, I'm scared to start cutting. He was afraid he was going to make a mess again. But anyway, yeah, and then we added on. And I said, we built the garage. And I said, no, we're going to put a roof over from the house to the garage. But we got to make sure that were the right height when we built this garage. And he went and measured, and he said, I'll measure again, and he did. He went up and measured again, and I didn't want to embarrass him, so I didn't go measure. And we got the house done, or the garage done on the other side, and we went to put the roof across to the other side, and lo and behold, he was high. So now, what are we going to do? But he said we can fix it. And he did. He made the rafters longer till it come to the right height. And now I should have been able to split a sheet of plywood in half to make the eaves. Now I've got to use 2/3 of the sheet, and the other third goes to waste. So wasted a lot of time and money there. But anyway, it worked out. We've got a nice big eave on the garage now. Well, we should tell the story about when you fell off your bike.
Oh, that's a sad one though. You go ahead.
Well, I remember,
It was June the 17th.
and I was spraying with a
You
little
were-
tractor and a pull-type sprayer up north, and I came home because I was running low on fuel. And I think it was Donna come racing over to the fuel tank and said, Brad fell and hurt himself, and you have to come. So I went over there, and here was Brad. His throat was swelling really big. And so we jumped in the car and went to my deal with Dr. Mainprice. And Dr. Mainprice said he's got a broken trachea. He said, you'll have to take him to Weyburn. We can't, nothing here. So we jumped in the car and went to Weyburn. Well, I had to have gas. I stopped at the gas station in Mydale, and I put gas in. I didn't even take time to pay for it. And we left, and I was driving 105 miles an hour. And I knew that was too fast for my car, and I passed this one guy, and he pulled in right behind me, because I guess he knew there was something wrong. And we got to the hospital, and got Brad in there. And they had to
They operated that
operate
night.
whatever they did there. I don't know, but
Put the tracheotomy in.
yeah, that was pretty serious.
You were in the hospital for about 10 days, I think, altogether. And Dolores and I one day came to see you, because we could only see you from 2 to 3 or something. And you were 5 years old, so you kind of wanted to go home. And so I thought, well, I'll leave and leave Dolores with you so that you won't cry when I leave. And when I left, and then you wouldn't let Dolores go. She had to stay. Well, anyway, she left you. But you were 10 days in the hospital. It was a long time.
I remember another time, they were playing around. We had a cement mixer in the yard, and Ken and Brad were playing with that. Ken come running, you gotta come, Brad's stuck in the cement mixer. So I come there, and Brad's hand was, his left hand, his guitar picking hand, was
Stuck in the gearbox.
stuck in the gearbox. And I looked at that and I said, well, Brad, there's only one way out, and that's backwards. We gotta turn it backwards. And that's what we did, and he came out, and his hands his fingers were flat, just flat. And we took him to
My
main prize, and he looked at it, oh, can't do much for that. He said, they'll probably be all right. And they were, I guess. Was it Tracy that we couldn't find? Mm-hmm. And we found her out at the main driveway, sleeping in the ditch.
And your face was in the gravel, and there were little rocks stuck all over her face. Yeah, in the early 70s after church, we'd go out to, well, it was his idea to go out to Ricker's farm, because everybody wanted to talk after church anyway, so we went out to the farm for a ball game. So we went out there, and this one time Billy Krause was even involved in there. He was up to bat, and he hit the ball, and it went foul, and it went straight up in the air, And he was watching to see where it was, and he wasn't looking, and I was trying to dodge him, and he hit me right and threw me on the ground, and we just landed splat right on the ground. I thought he was going to knock me out, really. I think he did. And that wasn't much fun, but not funny either.
And then we met every week after that.
For a while, yeah.
Yeah, well, it was 2 summers I think
Yeah,
we did
yeah.
that. It was really a good time.
Yeah.
How it grew, from just a few families to lots of families, and then we used to barbecue. They had to bring the barbecues, had supper there and everything. And then people started coming that weren't even from our church.
Right.
They were coming out there, like I remember Clayton Kahaka was coming out there and stuff.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it got to be a big deal. It was really good.
Ken and Brad, they were quite the boys. And one day I walked in on them, and they were playing with my bras. And so I thought I'll teach them a lesson. So I put them back side by side on the back to each other, and I tied them with bras, one around, and tied them to the table leg. And they were so embarrassed. And he came in just then, and he took a look, and he just killed himself laughing. He thought that was the funniest. But I was teaching them a lesson. Don't play with my bras.
And they still like bras.
I don't think it's bras that they like.
No, I.
Hey, I actually hate bras.
Yeah.
They get in the way.
Spoils everything.
They should be outlawed.
Oh, this has been more fun than I thought.
Oh man.
Did you talk about your honeymoon when you went on your honeymoon?
Yeah.
Not in detail.
Donna read me all the way up here. We talked for an hour and a half. She read me your diary on your honeymoon. What you said, like,
Is that legal?
Really? What's she doing with my
she has her
diary?
diary. You gave it to her.
I gave it to her. What is wrong with my
And
hand?
then for an hour and a half, she talked about your honeymoon. To your son.
I can't even talk an hour and a half about it.
We had about 100 leghorn chickens, white ones, beautiful chickens. I remember one time we came home from church. Could have been 1975, but
You'd be 9 years old.
man, Gordy's white dog was there. Beautiful dog. And there was chickens dead all over the yard. They were just laying everywhere. So we went and told Gordy. Well, Gordy came over and he couldn't believe what happened to him. Anyway, he said, I'll make it right with you. So anyway, he shot the dog, which was a terrible shame.
Oh,
Then he brought some guinea hens and a few little checkered chickens over to replace them. And we had those guinea hens in that yard for years. You'd hear them all the time. Never see them, but you'd hear them all the time.
Well, they were bantam hens, is what they were.
yeah.
They weren't guineas are those gray ones that with the little feather that sticks out. The bantam hens are those little colorful things. He brought over a box of like 20 little chicks.
They would lay eggs all over the yard. One spring, Brad and Ken found some duck eggs, so they took them over and put them under one of these hens. And later on, when they hatched out, out come the little ducks, and they all went to the dugout and started swimming, and the hen was having a fit out on shore because she couldn't get out there and swim.
That would be bad.
You remember you're on TV too.
Oh, forgot. You mean I can't laugh?
Oh my gosh, I remember there was one year where the yard was livid with snakes, little garter snakes. So I said to the boys, I'll give you a penny a snake if you catch them. And I never thought no more about it. So they were catching snakes. And they came running one day and said, you gotta come, we got a bunch of snakes, you gotta pay us for snakes. So one day, came home with the school bus, went to throw some garbage in a barrel, and here was this barrel 2/3 full of snakes. So I got gas can, poured some gas in there and lit it. Well, that was the worst thing I could have ever done. Those snakes just cried.
They
It
cried
was
like
just
babies.
painful to hear that.
Oh.
They were just moaning and groaning. It was awful. Oh, it almost gave me nightmares. It was that bad. How many was there in there? 300 and...
Yeah, there was 305, I think, is what you had written in your scribbler, because they had written it, you know. They
Something.
weren't just garter snakes, they were big ones.
Oh man, what a mess.
They were big. They'd run, I could see them, they were gathering them, and they kept running across the yard, about 3 or 4 snakes in each hand, just running because they were making money. Well, I don't remember it fully, but I remember that it was Easter, it was Holy Thursday, and George and Ardell and Shelley had come over, and we were just laughing and talking and having a good time, but then all of a sudden it started to storm. And within minutes, I remember that there was a snowstorm behind the house that was nearly as high as the house, you know, snowbank. And they ended up all staying for the night because they couldn't go home. Brian was new to our family at the time, and he was there too. And I didn't realize he had gone out, and then he came back and went and laid on the couch. And you get up in the night to cover all the kids, you know. And I don't know why I did that, but that's what I did. And Brian was on the couch, and I didn't realize it, but I covered Brian up because he was on the couch, and I didn't know it was him. That's how many people were in our house that night. Of course, we could go into the playing, I suppose.
Well, yeah, I started.
You started playing with Gary and George, you remember? No, you even played with Robert Dixon.
Robert Dixon. Yeah, there was different ones. I had kind of a band, but not a serious one. But we did play off and on. And then
Ray Kulak.
Ray Kulak. Brad took over from him. Yeah, Ray came out, and he sang a few songs with us there, and so we got together and we played with them for
Ray Kulak,
Ray and George
and Randy
for
quite a few years.
2 or 3 years, I would guess.
Then Randy left for Upper People.
Yeah.
That's when you came over, and that's when you took Kenny home from Ross, because Kenny had been playing with
Kenny
Ross.
a big accordion, and he was playing with Ross O'Block. And we went down there. It's because I asked Kenny when Ray quit if Kenny would want to come and play with our band. Well, of course he did. He didn't want to be an accordion player, he wanted to be a guitar player. So we had to go down and tell Ross, and we got down there. And Ross said, I know why you're here. Kenny's quitting. And I thought, how did he know that? But his mother heard it somehow. I have no idea how. But she knew. Yeah, and then Kenny came home, and
I thought of Kenny, something about Kenny to talk about was, I was going to say something to the effect that I'm the one that taught him how to play guitar. Because that I really did, because I wrote the song Cotton Jenny out. Then I had him put the chords where they were supposed to be. We showed him the chords, and that was the beginning of his guitar playing.
Well, that's funny because that's what Donna did for me.
Is that right?
And Donna taught me how to play guitar.
really?
Yeah.
Isn't it
Same
funny?
song, Cotton Jenny. That's the first song I ever played.
I remember telling Brad in the spring, well, it wasn't in the spring, but it was late spring, but I said, we're booked on July 1st in Mydale to play for a dance. And I said, I know you can sing, but I said, you have to at least try to play guitar, you know. So he went into the bedroom and would play guitar like crazy and come out just a sweating. And by the time July came along, we had it made. And we played for the dance, and it worked really good. And from there on, it kind of boomed.
Was that the dance that was like you and I and Donna and Randy?
That night it probably would have been George and you and Dad.
Oh, yeah.
and Ray Kulak, I think.
Yeah.
And remember one time that you did something in Macomb, you were just little, I mean young, like, and Donna was on the stage too, and Randy, and you did something in Macomb Hall.
Well, it was a talent contest or some.
What was something?
Something we played.
Maybe Randy remembers.
Yeah, no, it was it was Donna and it was all of us.
Yeah.
Donna, Randy,
Yeah.
Kenny, and I, and you.
Yeah.
And it was
By that time, Kenny must have been able to play guitar not bad, you know?
Yeah, no, that was a talent contest. Just a talent show, wasn't it?
I don't think Tracy was up there,
No,
but you
no.
were.
Yeah, and we did like By the Rivers of Babylon.
And all the competitions you did, you know?
Yeah.
That's another thing,
Yeah.
Speaking of the band, yeah, we played for about 8 years.
Yeah, 79 to
88.
88.
Well,
Well,
New
just
Year's
into
Eve.
88, yeah.
Yeah. New Year's Day, you were left.
And we'd done a lot of weddings and graduations.
Oh my goodness.
And Christmas dances, New Year's Eve, and oh my gosh.
They used to have so many Christmas dances in December. And now
We'd look back at a book and sometimes
it's
we
just
played
black.
3 times
It's
a
just
week.
black with bookings.
Lord, I hope this day is good. You can't beat that. Driftwood!
Lord, I hope this day is good. I'm feeling empty and misunderstood. I should be thankful, Lord, I know I should. But Lord, I hope this day is good. Brother again.
Talk about when you first started working in the bar with Shirley.
I had to work at the Beefeater Plaza because Kenny was playing with Ross LeBlanc, and he was playing accordion, and he was too young to drive himself. So I had to bring him to the Beefeater where Ross would meet us. And then I started working at the Beefeater as a bar maid for Kenny. And Kenny would go play, and then he'd bring him back there, and then we'd go home. And we did that for about a year, I think.
Talk about being a band widow and you had to sit there and play those dances and listen to them same songs over and over again.
Yeah. Well, being a band widow, I was that for years, and until I started staying home. After a while, it was easier to stay home and, than go and sit and, well, it would be so long, like it would be till, you'd play sometimes till 2 o'clock in the morning, and then by the time you picked everything up, by the time you got home, depending where we were, which would be quite far sometimes, it was a long night. There wasn't much time left to sleep, I tell you. So I started staying home. I sat with Ardell, and I sat with Della, and I sat with all Kenny's girlfriends. You were playing a dance in Benson, I think it was, and he'd had this girlfriend, and I don't know, he'd found another one someplace, and they came and sat down beside me, one on each side.
Didn't know each other.
And they didn't know each other, but I knew who they were, and Kenny was playing, and he didn't want to take a break because he didn't want to come down. So he was up there playing and playing.
That's a good one.
It's really was. It's funny.
Yeah, that's a fun.
I could go on, but
I don't think I told the story about the time we had cleaned some drain and we had some screenings in the elevator in Mydale. So we went and got the screenings, and we had built a floor about 1.5 feet up in a stall area in the barn. So we unloaded that load of screenings onto this
in the bin.
in this new bin that we had built, and the floor was about 1.5 feet off the ground. And I went inside and I crawled underneath there to see what was happening, and it was leaking a little bit. So I thought, oh, I'll go and get some cloth and I'll shove it in there and plug the hole so it quits leaking. So I got up and I left, and I wasn't gone 3 minutes. And I came back and the floor had broke and fell right to the ground. If I'd have been under there, you'd be looking for me to this day.
Guardian Angel.
Honest.
Guardian Angel number 4
My
now.
guardian angel again, you bet. Oh, oh, oh. Unbelievable. That close. That close.
And where would we have found?
You'd have never known where I
of
You
was.
know what? I was with you that day. I would have found you.
Really?
Oh, were you? Well, he tells it all the time, Kenny, that story.
You tell me.
When he came home late one night and he was trying to sneak into the house and he was tiptoeing through the house, and the dishwasher door was open and he slid into the dishwasher and the dishwasher, the dishes went flying and Kenny was on the floor and woke everybody up. Didn't do a good job of sneaking in that night. As if he was that scared of us. I don't think so.
That's a funny story, though.
I don't know why I'm warm in this shirt, and usually I'm not too warm.
Well, you're acting.
Oh,
What's a good
Well, there
Randy
you-
story?
Well,
Well-
when he got his foot caught in the rock
yeah,
picker.
but that's doom and gloom. It's not really funny, you know.
No, but
It's not funny. It's not worth it.
No, but I mean, I like funny things. You know,
Yeah, me too.
if
Yeah.
it gets too doom and gloom,
Sure.
you think, what a horrible life those two had.
But I remember one Sunday, they had a sale on gas in Estevan. So Randy was out on 5 where the boys had bought that land, and he was there picking stones. And Brad was cultivating on that field,
With his sweetheart.
and I guess Rhea was with you. Anyway, I come home from town with a load of fuel, and I was going to pump it in the big tank and go and get another one. And the yard was just dead. There was just nothing moving. And I just felt there was something wrong. I jumped in the truck after I unloaded it, and we went to 5, where Randy was picking stones, and I get there, and the stone picker's there, sitting there. The cultivator's sitting beside it, and there's nobody around. And we couldn't figure out what the heck was wrong. And I don't remember, did they call from the hospital? I
They
don't
had
remember.
to.
I guess they did. And it said that Randy had been stuck in the rock
And they
picker.
had taken him to Regina for, he has a
pin.
put in and stuff.
That was very fortunate that day that nothing worse than that happened. Could have been a lot worse. Without Brad's expertise in backing that rock picker just a certain amount without breaking his leg. We used to buy a couple of steers from George Gahinka every year to butcher after we sold our cattle. And this one day, we had this big Charlet steer, and I was in the corral with the gun, and when I pulled the trigger, I knew I missed because he moved his head, and he turned and went down the other side of the corral, and he was standing there looking at me, and I had the gun, and all of a sudden he just bunched up and started to come as hard as he could on the gallop. And I stood there and went like this, pulled the trigger, and he fell at my feet. Now, you talk about guardian angels, that's one time out of the 15 that he saved my life.
For 25.
Oh, man.
Well, Mother was very good at telling us everything that happened to us. Like, she'd remember to tell us, oh, you were born at 4 in the afternoon, which she said about 4 in the afternoon I was born. And, you know, things like that. She never forgot to tell you things. She always talked a lot about everything. Otherwise, I wouldn't know.
You must be just like her because you tell us when I was born 6 minutes to midnight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And Randy was 6 minutes to 2.
You can ask her anybody's birthday, she'll tell you when it is.
My gosh.
But don't ask me, like I can't ever remember the numbers if we've got $200 in the bank or 400. I haven't got a clue. You know, I can't remember that. I don't know why.
That's because you don't have any.
Oh, I never thought of that. That's why. I forgot.
Yeah,
For everybody's
it's unbelievable. She'd be sitting there reading, and all of a sudden she'll say, I bet you don't know whose birthday it is today. Well, of course I don't know whose birthday it is today. It's so-and-so's birthday. Yeah, and his sister is in so-and-so place, and her birthday is so-and-so.
Well, one time we were at Lampin. Louise was sick, and we went to see her just before she died. And we were talking exactly like this, and Aaron was there. And do you know when my birthday is? I said, yeah, March the 5th. And I can tell you Loretta's, and I can tell you Neil's, and I can tell you Shauna's. I think Shauna, I get mixed up with Shauna because she's either the 7th or the 9th of September. I think she's the 7th though.
And she's probably right.
How about Karen Heidinger?
Oh, I wonder. Karen Heidinger. I was in the hospital with having Brad when Karen was born that morning. But I can't remember a lot of things that I wish I'd remember. Of course, there are a few things I want to forget too.
Yeah.
We went to Mexico about 4 times. 3 to Puerto Vallarta, and the other one on the other side, on the Cancun side, and down the Mayan there. We did one there. And then we went to Florida about 3 times, and we went to California about I don't know how many times. Took a trip with Elsa and one alone through the States to get to, well, we went to Hoover Dam and Anaheim and name whatever's all down there. San Diego, and we went across into Mexico too when we were there on the trips to the States. We went across there.
Remember when you you were playing with Rylan?
Oh, yeah, we were playing on a stone pile, and I had moved one rock, and I don't know how I did it, but anyway, this finger got caught in it. And I just had to have stitches, and oh my gosh. It wasn't any fun. We were half a mile north of the farm, on top of it, on a gator. And Rylan's only 5 years old or something. So I had to put my hand up like this because it was bleeding and falling down. And he even remembers that, you know. Then we went to Estevan, got some stitches and everything else. We went to Mydale first, but they said to go to Estevan.
Remember what she said?
Oh, yeah, and then I'd go to Mydale into the hospital to get it cleaned up every once in a while. And it was Jan Sjostrom was the nurse there, and she said, what happened? She said, you worked too hard. And I said, I wasn't working, I was playing. She said, remind me not to play with you. Thought it was quite cute of her.
Did you talk about the crop circles?
No.
No, we didn't. In 1999, I remember Jeannette had been combining, and I took the combine, and I was at the south end of Olson's, 29.
Just east of the yard.
And Randy was on the north end. And all of a sudden I come in with the lights on. There was this, looked like a big hole in the ground. It was black shadow, big circle, and I stopped and I couldn't believe my eyes. So I radioed Randy and told him to come and see what this was. Well, it was a tremendous crop circle. It was unbelievable. People came from all over to see the crop circle for the next week. We left it there.
And it came from where? All over Europe too, like overseas they came.
Well,
No, there was the American Crop Circle Association and the Canadian
Yeah,
Crop
that
Circle
came.
Association.
we got a book.
Yeah, we're in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they couldn't explain that.
No. CBC came out and there was a documentary on it. And the scientists took the seeds from inside the circle and from outside the circle, and they germinated them in glass things, and we have that show somewhere. And the germination on the seeds outside the circle were 95%, which would be very typical, and on the inside of the circle, they were 5%.
And
The germination.
And the, what do you call them?
The
knots?
nodules
The holes.
on the,
The
no, the
nodules.
nodules on the plants were elongated.
Yeah.
Elongated.
On the inside of the circle. And that was as flat as this floor.
But flat this far off the ground.
Yeah.
That was the key.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you could tramp it down. And
Right.
the other thing was, it was braided. It was braided all the
Yeah,
way
it was
around.
braided. That,
No human made that. That was a
Oh, there's no question.
that was a
I
mystery.
remember you saying, "Oh, they do. They know how they do that."
Yeah.
with a board.
No, but you know, I went out there and I walked out there and I walked in that circle. When I walked in that circle, it was just like
No,
something weird going on here.
Yeah.
You
So
can tell,
in
there's a feeling.
2001, we had like 7 of them scattered around, remember?
Yeah, there was.
And it looked like people made every one of them.
Yes, I swear they did.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
But that one, I don't know, that was a crop circle.
Well, I'll never forget how I couldn't believe my eyes. It just looked like, well, Durham was tall, you know, and all of a sudden here's this big round black shadow in the lights, just
It
like
looked
there was
like a hole.
like a big hole there, you know, and it just was scary.
But there was another crop circle along the road. Remember we were going with the combines and
Oh yeah.
it was just off the road a little bit. And that we hadn't made unless somebody had come and done it. Smaller circle, but
Well, I remember the one that was just east of the yard. That one had it was round like this, had a tuft in the middle that was circle.
Yes,
like that,
yeah.
and then had a little circle over here, a little circle over here, and then another one across. It wasn't in our field. I think it was south of there. It was a wagon wheel. It was in the shape of a wagon wheel. It had a circle in the middle, like a big 12-foot circle or something, and then it had lines that went out like that to a big ring.
Unbelievable.
Talk about your cars you had in your lifetime.
well, we had a few. The first one we got of our own was that, wasn't it a Chevy, that pink and white one?
55 Chevy. That was after I sold the gravel truck.
And
Bought a
then,
55 Chevy, pink and white, beautiful car. It was great in the summertime. Couldn't drive it in the winter because transmission seal would go out on it when it was cold. And it would leak all the transmission fluid on the floor, on the floor. So had to get rid of it. Nice car.
and
Then we
bought-
bought 63 GMC, and then we traded it on a 65, that red 65. We ordered it, and I had to wait for, I don't know, nearly 2 months to get it because they couldn't come out with a 345 engine. And I could get it with a 283, but that's what I had in the 63, and that's why I didn't like it, because it didn't have enough power. You couldn't pass anybody. So I waited and I finally got it. That was a nice little car. And that's the car I blew the engine when we took you to the hospital.
took Brad to the hospital.
Yeah. Took Brad to the hospital is right. Yeah. And then I bought that 74 Buick from Mrs. Wallawine. Had that for 10 years. And then I bought an 84 Oldsmobile. And then Brad was selling cars and talked me into buying a Lincoln. So I bought that Lincoln. And then Dave was selling cars, talked me into buying a newer Lincoln, smaller one. And from that I bought a GMC Yukon. Yeah, that's what I had. And then
Or maroon Nissan.
I bought a maroon
Nissan.
Nissan from the States.
No,
Also,
yeah. we
also
did.
bought, what is it, a 2007 Lincoln truck from the States.
We bought a couple trucks in
You know,
between there too.
when I think about that, you know, we sent that guy $35,000.
37.
Send him that money and depended on him to send the truck from Chicago.
Yeah.
If I had to do that over again, I think I'd think twice.
And now what do you drive?
I drive a Nissan Murano, yeah. Nissan Murano. And still the Lincoln.
We don't need a different car.
And now we have 2 scooters that we have more fun in than we do with the car.
It's our exercise.
We got 3 scooters actually. We got the little one that Randy brought us from. You got a birthday present for that from Randy.
Yeah,
A little scooter.
from Florida.
Tempted us to buy the bigger ones.
I like that little scooter. I liked it really a lot. But I started driving the bigger one. But
Got more power. You can pass
well,
people
I
around.
don't go that fast anyway. I don't need to go the speed it goes.
Ended up we're not going any faster than we were when she used the little one, so.
Oh, I saw I was going 14 one day.
Yeah.
It was in 2001, November 2nd is when we bought the house.
Well,
We came up to visit Tracy in White City. She had just moved here in February of 2001. So we came up to visit her.
They were building a new house.
And they had a house built already when we
Well,
came.
that wasn't finished, but
That Sunday afternoon, she said, you know, there's a house for sale down the street, a show home. So she said, if you want to come, we'll go look at it this afternoon. I said, sure. So we came over and looked at it, and yeah, sure, yeah. And we could have made an offer to them. So you didn't make an offer right then.
no.
It wasn't very long when we went back to the farm, and then Tracy called and said, I think you should buy that house. I think it's would be a good deal for you. And so we came back up again, took another look at it. He put a bid in, very low bid, thinking you won't take that. They had 3 weeks to decide whether they would take it. So in 3 weeks they called. It was over 3 weeks when they called and said, well, we can't accept that for that price. So, and he thought, oh well, it's over. Well, he said, we don't really need a house. We have one here, and we never thought of moving anyway. And the guy said, what's his name? Your auntie.
I had given him $10,000 down, and he said that, well, you know, we'd have to give him more money. And I said, well,
More
I was
money
thinking
than-
about taking my $10,000 back, because I said, really don't need a house. We had just built onto the one at the farm and we were happy there. And I thought he was going to say, well, I guess we can't make a deal. So he said, well, I guess we'll have to take your offer. So we came up and bought it. And we've been here for 20 years. And it was one of the better moves we made at that time.
Yeah, because the house is set up for visitors and family. And
Oh, the house is yeah, it's great. Kids can come. We got 3 big bedrooms downstairs. There's 5 bathrooms. So we're happy. It's working good for us.
Remember all the parties we had for your 25th, your 40th, your
Oh,
50th,
yeah.
your 60th?
Yeah.
35. We started.
Should have a list.
We started celebrating our anniversaries at 25. Randy and Della were married that day. Well, 2 days later,
Yeah.
and we didn't celebrate that one. We just had the wedding. But at 35, we celebrated.
No, but at 25, we went to Hawaii.
Well, that's when we went to Hawaii.
Yeah.
The kids bought
You bought us a ticket to Hawaii.
ticket to Hawaii.
And then Ross and Shirley went, and
Lawrence and Edna
Lawrence and
Irwin
Edna Irwin, yeah.
and George and Ardell.
George and Ardell, yeah, that's right. That was a good time.
And then we celebrated the 40th, and Dylan was about 3.5, and Tracy said to him, Dylan, you look so nice. And he says, I don't look like this every day.
He's in a little suit.
Dylan, he was so funny. By that time we were down to Kirk. Kirk was the baby that time. I know more things about the grandchildren than I know about my own kids, like, you know.
When you're raising kids, it's hard to slow down and focus
Yeah,
on.
I can't.
Too busy.
Yeah.
I know I made a lot of birthday cakes. And then we celebrated 50.
50 was at the Wiley Mitchell. We took everybody's picture as they came in.
Yeah.
Ray Kulak was there, and we
Got a picture of Ray and George and you and Dad.
yeah. But we all played. Remember?
Yeah. Kenny played banjo and
Yeah. And Ross had a great time, and Bill had a great
And
time.
Quinn sang too. He was only 7 years old or something.
Oh, many, many years ago,
When I was 23,
I was married to a widow.
who was pretty as could be,
This widow had a grown-up daughter.
who had hair and bread,
My father fell in love with her.
and soon they two were wed,
This made my dad my son-in-law.
and changed my very life,
For my daughter was my mother.
'cause she was my father's wife.
To complicate the matter,
Even though it brought me joy
I soon became the father.
of a bouncing baby boy,
My little baby then became,
a brother-in-law to dad.
and so became my uncle.
Though it made me very sad,
For if he was my uncle,
then that also made him brother,
of the widow's grown-up daughter,
who of course was my stepmother.
my father's wife had had a son,
That kept him on the run,
and he became my grandchild.
'cause he was my daughter's son.
My wife is now my mother's mother,
Although it made me blue,
because although she is my wife,
she's my grandmother too.
now if my wife is my grandmother,
Then I'm her grandchild.
and every time I think of it,
It nearly drives me wild.
for now I have become the strangest,
Case you ever saw,
as husband of my grandmother.
I am my own grandpa.
I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. I'm my own grandpa. Good job, Quinn. Chicks dig that.
Dad, give Mom a kiss.
What?
Yeah. Just grab her and give her a kiss.
Do I have to?
Yeah. Right on the lips.
No, I don't
Come
kiss
on.
my lips.
We're too old.
No,
for that.
okay, well, kiss her on the cheek.
Right there.
Oh my.
Oh, you want to see that? I thought you'd be embarrassed. Nothing embarrasses me anymore.
Notice that.
When you have 5 kids, you'll know.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to put 90 years into a day. A lot of stuff in there. Oh, let's go have a shot.